about the baby being innocent, questions for you. Would have been better for the baby to live and become a criminal? We do not know the future. God knows all possible futures. I'm just saying, he was going on about free will earlier, and I emphasize this. The soul who sins shall die. The son shall not bear the guilt of the father, nor the father bear the guilt of the son. Yeah, that was my comment section on a video reacting to evolution deniers, believe it or not. This video is mainly for the other commenters that I get, stating that people don't really believe the Bible literally. That would actually be great, and welcome to the channel, if that's one of you. But unfortunately, people do take the Bible literally, and eventually it gets taught in schools as science instead of religion. Like God actually wrote it himself. You know, God picked up a pen, put it to paper, and dropped the book on the ground for us to find. And the problems that come from believing in that become justified as the words of God. Like you just saw, the death and suffering of an innocent baby justified because in the Bible, God did it. Just remember, my main issue is with biblical literalists, like young earth creationists, evolution deniers, etc. So here we go, here's the first comment I got specifically from this guy. Oh, and believe it or not, all the comments in this video are from the same person. And myself, obviously. So he quoted a timestamp on each, so thanks for doing that, it really helps me understand what part you're trying to refer to. We'll play the clip for context each time. The first comment he gave, he ironically claimed I was talking magic. Anyway, here's the clip. Some species will need to adapt faster as their environments have drastically changed, so adaptations are more likely to suit the new environment rather than their current, previously well-adapted form. However, with a stable environment, evolution slows down. How, by what magic, can you modify your deny by wishing on a star? I'm sorry, that's the voice I went with, it's just to differentiate here. I assume deny equals DNA in your comment. You're acting like evolution is the magic side of the argument here. By your other comments, and correct me if I'm wrong, your belief is that God did it, a supernatural being using some form of supernatural powers. Deny evolution all you want, but find evidence against it, have your study peer-reviewed to be the correct position. Good luck. Yes, typo autocorrect makes things weird. An intelligence existing outside our time-space continuum, yes. I would not say supernatural, of course you wouldn't. That applies to just beings existing in our universe. Wait, is he saying that supernatural beings actually exist? I've only just spotted that. Also, is not that supernatural since a part of it, even us, can make it with machines. There is plenty of evidence against it. Also, to what version of the theory do you refer to? Just as other pagan religions, Darwinism has a number of different stories. They switch depending on which argument you bring against them. I do find it funny he's trying to bring down evolution as if it is a religion and that religion must be a bad thing here. And his argument is religion. And the fact that he says pagan religions, in this context, I don't believe he's on about witchcraft. He's on about any religion that isn't Abrahamic religion, like Judaism, Christian, and Muslim. So any other religion from them would be pagan. Anyway, I'll go with my comment. Again, you're misunderstanding or misrepresenting. Evolution is not a religion, and trying to say that it is, and portraying the idea that it is being a religion is a bad thing, is strange when you're presenting your answer, which is a religion. So, something that exists outside of time and space, it has no spatial dimension, not even a temporal one. In other words, it exists in non-existence. The abilities you claim God has are what makes it supernatural. 1. Evolution is a religion. It's called materialism and is based on Hinduism and Buddhism. Evolution is a theory based on how, living organisms adapt and change to their environment. Materialism is just believing that only materialistic things exist in the universe, like something tangible, something you can touch, and there is nothing else to the universe other than that. Although ample evidence to completely disprove every tenet of his hypothesis were discovered, the believers refused to reject it, maintaining is a fact. How is it not a religion? Number 2. Just because you or I cannot conceptualize anything outside our time-space bubble does not mean that something does not exist. As a note, physicists do say that quite often, but only in the context of evolution because this is what pays their paycheck. Sure, we can say that something may exist outside our time-space bubble, outside, our bubble universe if you believe in the multiverse theory, with the idea that there are multiple universes with different parameters of the laws of nature. But somewhere you could technically go to, I suppose, is a different type of multiverse. to have bubble universes. Anyway, yeah, sure, we could conceptualize that there could be something out there, but to say that there is something with no space and no time, it can't really exist without a point in, or at least interact with us, because it has no point in time in which it can do so. There is no causal effect if you imagine a world or a universe with absolutely zero time, where time doesn't move because, it doesn't exist. There's no temporal dimension to move forward or backwards from or to. Anyway, let's not deviate. So his first part was religion. Number 1, no, it's science, not religion. There is no deity to worship or sacred text. I know you don't specifically need a deity, but you do need some sort of religious thing to go by. Nonetheless, it still doesn't make your religion more plausible. Please share this evidence that disproves evolution, a link, or anything. Feel free to email me. My email is attached to my YouTube channel. Pretty much anyone can see it. And number 2, sure, we can't perceive anything outside of time and space, which makes me wonder why you are so sure of yourself that God is there. Today's science kind of is. Basically, you repeat what you are told, or you get your fund cut or fired. Also, a religion does not have to have a deity. I know, that's why I kind of like the Buddhist religion. Not that I generally support religion, but I prefer the Buddhist one. The YouTube changes make things weird. Please provide an email and we'll write my reply, probably Sunday afternoon. Okay, sure. johnjoe1992@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. John is with 2 N's. Number 2, because he revealed himself to us. And even if his claims were untrue, the fact he can resurrect us, even if just a little dust is all that is left, still makes me be on his side. When has that ever happened? Like, when has God found a bit of dust, resurrected someone from it, and gone, poof, here he is. It's fine. We saved him. Don't worry about CPR or anything. Not that you can perform that on dust, but he said resurrect in general as well. I'd love to see proof of these claims. I assume he's referring, generally speaking, to Jesus. He was resurrected at some point, apparently. I would love to believe that that was true, but when looking through history, it's usually the most plausible answer that we find when there are multiple witnesses, even if it goes against the witnesses themselves. But the most plausible one, if it goes into something that's like, a miracle, something that is by definition not likely to happen, then quite frankly, it's not really a good argument to make, just because it was written in a book. Anyway, we'll finish off his comment. Fear not those that can hurt the body, but cannot touch the soul, but fear the one that can throw both in everlasting fire. I agree with that statement. Fear the one that can throw both in everlasting fire. The one that throws you is God. I don't know if you know that. And if that sentence you got was from the Bible, then the Bible is telling you to fear God. So make of that what you will. In response to his today science kind of is a religion. Number 1, well, that's not true. If it were the case, why is science consistently learning and changing? If it were, repeat what you were told, then why did you also state there is multiple versions of evolution? Also, to what version of the theory do you refer to? Just as other pagan religions, Darwinism has a number of different stories. They switch depending on which argument you bring against them. See? He said that. Number 2, he did not reveal himself. I've heard of a guy called Jesus, that some believe he is God. Some say he's God's son. Some say he wasn't even real. I think Jesus existed, maybe a good, selfless man trying to do good, and some exaggerated stories about him. And yeah, I'm underplaying how I mean exaggerated there. Maybe this is what you're talking about. Jesus is still depicted as human, described as human. We have no evidence that he had magical resurrection powers. But if you want to believe a story about a man with magical powers and accuse me of magical thinking because of science, sure, go ahead. Quite frankly, that was the end of the magical debate on YouTube. Let me know what you guys thought of that one. We're going to move on to the one where he timestamped 3:24. Here is the clip. It's not like we can just say God did it and leave it at that, right?
Patterns hauntingly reminiscent of creation.
God damn it. It's not, and I'll explain later.
The fossil record doesn't show gradual change, and every paleontologist has known that ever since Cuvier.
Yes, it does, but it can also show faster change as well. The rate of evolutionary changes are not constant. So we were just talking about how the rate at which evolution happens and, whether it's constant or not. And his quote was, "Evolution is not a theory as it does not answer questions like how, why, and in what way. Is merely a disproven hypothesis. Evolution happening is fact. The theory of evolution is our best explanation of how and why, just like gravity being fact, but the theory explains how and why. Because I did a V on accident. Tell him, I don't think he noticed. Anyway, so his comment was, gravity can be observed, evolution cannot. Comparing the two is a classic straw man evolutionist shoes. Now, I obviously didn't comment onto that here. I don't know if I actually replied to him on YouTube. I think I may have missed it when creating the comments. But either way, I'll answer it now. No, it's not really comparing them, and it's not a classic straw man argument, because it's not a straw man argument at all. A straw man argument would be, I don't know, over-exaggerating your points to a point where I'm creating a new enemy to fight. I'm creating a straw man in that sense. Comparing two facts or theories, whatever, isn't a straw man. You're the one stating that evolution isn't a fact. I'm telling you it is. But the theory of evolution explains how and why. The comparison isn't the actual theory. The comparison is the ideas of fact and theory and how they're different and how they relate to evolution. So the fact that it happens is fact. May not know how it happens, just like with gravity. We don't fully understand gravity yet. So we have it as fact because it's there. We're not going to fly off the planet, but we still not fully explaining on how it happens. That was pretty much what I was trying to get across, and he just said gravity can be observed, evolution cannot, which is wrong actually, because evolution can be observed. So let's move on to a longer chain of comments. Not too long though, because we've got 418, which has 4 comments in it, which is great. So let's just play the clip. Scientists predicted that if whales had evolved from land mammals, there should be transitional forms in the fossil record showing a series of changes from terrestrial to fully aquatic adaptations. Specifically, they predicted the existence of fossilized intermediate forms with characteristics intermediate between terrestrial mammals and modern whales. So we were talking about like a proof of evolution. When people create a theory, they generally make a prediction. Now, a prediction was made stating that whales are mammals, which means they must have came from land animals. Therefore, there should be transitional fossils that we can find that show the transitional stages of a land animal changing slowly over time with different adaptations that slowly make it a more adapted aquatic animal. They decided to try and find those transitional fossils, and they did. They made a prediction. They discovered their prediction to be correct, and that helped to prove their hypothesis and the theory. So that was the point of that clip there, and his response, admittedly I didn't actually respond as if watching the clip, because I was reading quite a few comments and checking through my phone, which made it a bit more difficult to do it, so I just kind of went with what he said. So just to be clear, specifically on this one, I probably should have watched the clip, but either way, it still doesn't matter too much. So he put at 418, and they are not. Just because you put some fossils in an order does not mean they evolved from one another, or even that they are genetically related. We know animals completely different genetically can produce similar fossils, thus the pillar of evolution, called homology, falls completely. Of course they invented the term convergent evolution to obscure this, but it does not help. So I responded with, you're right, it isn't based on just putting them in some order. We have their DNA and can compare and test against. Admittedly, I probably should have looked at it at that point, but generally speaking, I was thinking of Homo sapiens and stuff like that, because I obviously didn't watch the clip, I'll admit. I just was speaking generally. So I'll take some blame on this one. But he didn't even specify himself, he just said, here is the issue, you do not have the DNA of fossils. DNA cannot be extracted from remains that are older than a certain period of time, so either you have it, and the fossils are not billions of years old, or you do not, and cannot say those fossils are related. It's a catch-22. Then I put, the Homo genus isn't billions of years old, do some research. Anyway, but still, the Homo genus, generally, we have the DNA of. We can see a transitional stage, we can see the relationships between the different human species as it changed over time, and where it deviated, like Neanderthals are not direct descendants below us on the evolution hierarchy, but we have a common ancestor with them, and it split off into two, one being Neanderthals, one being humans, Homo sapien. This next one was my favourite, my absolute favourite, in a kind of disgusting way, to be honest. I was enjoying it at first, this line of comments and reasoning, but then it kind of just took a turn for the worst that you can even imagine. So we'll play the clip. He quotes at 4:45. You are forcing the evidence to make sense, whether it fits or not. A quick disclaimer, believing in the concept of God is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you believe that your God created everything, then everything and anything is your evidence. If evidence suggests evolution and you're denying reality, then aren't you denying God's work? Coming from an atheist, I'm sure that doesn't mean much, but believing in a holy book, all of which have been written by humans instead of trusting reality which God created according to believers, is kind of just strange. Okay, so just to remember, that was me stating the concept of God is fine. If you want to believe in a God, I won't stop you, okay? I even gave the way I think of people worshipping God and the way I feel like would be the most logical way to worship God, and it would be to find evidence of your reality, because if God is your creator and he created the universe around you, then studying the universe around you is probably the best way to understand your God, isn't it? But when you're stuck in the ideas of a book written over 1,000 years ago, and you're trying to make everything around you fit your book, it's like hammering a circle into a square. I was essentially saying it's okay to believe in God, but he comes back with, or evolution, Big Bang, or millions of years. Isn't it more logical that complexity is caused by intelligence? The part that he quotes just doesn't even really make that much sense here. Is he just trying to, because I said, it doesn't mean much coming from an atheist, and he's like, right, fine, I'm going at him for God. God must be the answer. But no, I don't think it is. It's a big jump to think that something of intelligence did it. And also, saying intelligence means different things. I mean, sure, you could say God. That's one form of intelligence. You could also say aliens. I mean, aliens could have done it, right? They could have built our entire solar system if they were advanced enough. They could have planted our life on Earth. They could have seeded everything here, and they could have made us exist. They could have started with dinosaurs and then got bored with them. Because let's face it, if they were really intelligent, they would never have got bored with dinosaurs. I mean, our solar system isn't the normal one out there. Our solar system is pretty unique for many different ways. It's not perfect, nor is our planet, but it's decent. And if aliens made it, wouldn't they then be our gods? Or would we then have to look for their creators and who seeded their worlds and stuff like that? Also, you could think of simulation theory, and some guy at a computer called Kevin could be our god. He doesn't even know that we exist. Maybe he's looking at other worlds. Maybe he doesn't even notice us here, and he's just there. Maybe he's going to put us in the recycle bin at one point. We just don't know. Just stating intelligence doesn't mean God. It doesn't mean some omnipotent being. I'll stop ranting now, because this is a long enough comment section as it is. So I put... No, not really. If something intelligent created it, then it would have found a faster or more efficient way of doing so. The fact that things are inefficiently designed like humans and other animals is also evidence of randomness. Intelligence would have done it better. A forest fire is much more complex than a campfire. So, because he asked the question, how are these things inefficient? Well, the human body has many inefficient issues with it, and I do go into one of them later, but you can easily find them. I can't name the specific terminology in biology because I'm not a biologist, but I know there's some artery that was at one point straight and evolved slowly because something new came in place and slowly moved down and pushed out of the way. Like, that is a weird one. But yeah, there are so many things you could point out. But anyway, I'll carry on. So he put, how are these things inefficient? Also, as a note, everything is in a state of continuous entropy. The DNA of every living thing is constantly breaking down, especially after the flood. You mean the flood we still don't have evidence for? Sorry. And more errors occur. Like, things that aren't efficiently designed. Which is weird, because you're asking me how are things inefficient, and you go on about DNA decaying. Very full of yourself, saying you could have done things better, aren't you? Can you give me an example of how you would do it more efficiently? See, I love the fact that he put that. Not in a narcissistic way, it just makes this so much more fun to deal with. So, I didn't actually say I could do it better. I said intelligence could have. I appreciate the compliment that you put me in this godly tier of intelligence. Thank you. But I think if I were God, then I would be free from my back pain, which was caused by natural growth and pressure. It's a herniated disc. Just one of those inefficient designs in humans that our spines are designed well enough to support us all the time. I think I was meant to put a not. Also, have you read the Bible? It's the only book I've read that genuinely nearly made me sick. I'm not actually joking there. It is. This might be a trigger warning for some people because I am actually about to read stuff from the Bible. or at least telling the stories, but I do get into Bible text later. In Samuel 11, it's actually 2 Samuel 11, 12, David causes a man's death to take his wife and has a baby with her. God could have prevented that from happening, but instead acted afterwards. His punishment was the wife to be slept with in the streets, and the baby suffered with sickness for 7 days and died. That's the worst morals I could even think of. A man does evil, so punish the wife and baby, but not him. The baby was innocent and suffered. I'm not full of myself, but let's say you're right about everything. God exists, He created us, and the Bible is true. Then, I wouldn't refuse to believe. I would, however, never worship something so evil. The best argument against Bible literalists is read the Bible. And just to clarify my point there, it's when you take the Bible literally that these stories are true. These stories actually happened. God let David cause a man's death to take his wife, to have the baby, so that God himself could kill and make a baby suffer, and had the wife be laid with thy neighbour. It's hard to say, it's difficult. Sorry for stuttering there, but I'm going to move on. So there's my comment just above. I've moved his into place now. This is what I thought was funny. He's not even reading and knowing his own stuff as well, because he actually said that I put myself in that godly tier of intelligence, which I didn't, and I have to actually literally quote me and him saying the same lines. But that's in the next part. Number 1, you are the one putting yourself in that tier. I wasn't. I said intelligence and it. He said you. You are the one putting yourself in that tier. About disc hernia is generally caused from abuse. I actually don't know what he's meaning by that. I don't know if he means that I was abused when I was younger by other people, or whether he just means generally damage or whatever. I don't know, but I didn't like it. No matter what you made from that, there will also be a limit to how much it can stand. Number 2, yes, I did. I know. That is because humans are not perfect. Also, if God did not allow free will, you would just be robots and there would be no merit in doing good. Not sure where you got the wife thing. Yes, the baby died. First off, he did not punish David directly, because he had to build the temple and lead the people, but he suffered much more for the baby. Also, as a note, David repented. God says, I do not want the sinner to die, but to repent and be alive again. About the baby being innocent, questions for you. Would have been better for the baby to live and become a criminal? We do not know the future. God knows all possible futures. I'm just saying, he was going on about free will earlier, but apparently David, a person who did evil, gets the free will. But a newborn baby doesn't get the free will to have that free will to, be a criminal in the future. If he so chooses, maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. I mean, even if God knows that he would, he's still denying the baby free will. So shouldn't he have punished David before he did become a criminal? Which we know to have happened because in this story it happened in the past. No? Is it just one time and not the other? Sorry. Anyway, God wants people to come to heaven. But for people to come to heaven, you need good people and innocent people to die. So how is it bad then for the innocent to die? When that innocent is a baby, and God made him sick for 7 days, God made him suffer. So even if you discount the part where the baby died and went to, I don't know, some paradise, if that makes you feel better, then God still made a baby suffer. Let's move on to my comment. I explain it much better in a comment. So you can just about see his comment up top there, and here's my reply. And after I sent this, he stopped replying to me. But I still have another comment section to go through, so I'll go through this now. We'll have a look at what the last part in a minute. Well, I don't even have the heart to like and heart your comments anymore. I will simply never understand how you can justify the suffering of a baby caused by God as a punishment for the baby's father's sins. Even in your own Bible it states, the soul who sins shall die, the son shall not bear the guilt of the father, nor the father bear the guilt of the son. Ezekiel, some random numbers. If you want to check, they're on screen right now, obviously, so you can see that. But here we go anyway. Number 1, I did not. My statement. If something intelligent created it, then it would have found a faster, more efficient way of doing so. I emphasize, it would have created, not I would have created. You put me in that position here by stating, very full of yourself, saying you could have done things better, aren't you? That's what you said. 1b, herniated disc. I was not abused, never abused myself. I genuinely didn't know what he meant, so I just thought I'd clarify. at least that part. It developed from my spine growing faster than my body, creating pressure that crushed a disc. Luckily, it's not too bad, as I have seen others who are worse, which is unfortunate. And I stopped numbering things here, so I just went 2 and 3, because I didn't want to try and separate these. It's all quite the same thing. So, anyway, let's go through it. I didn't question free will. Sure, David is evil, or should I say did evil, but I put is evil. But God doesn't apply here because of free will, even though he prevents free will after by punishing anyway, but still, whatever you say. The story from 2 Samuel 11 to 12 goes, David saw a woman bathing and wanted her to visit the room, knowing that the woman is married and her husband is fighting battles. Anyway, they conceive. He then has the husband sent to the front lines of the battles, and he dies in battle. And David marries the wife. That was for context, not for questioning. This is what I'm questioning. This section's about the wife. Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own home, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and give them unto thy neighbour, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun. For thou didst secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel, and before the sun. No context. Giving wives, I'm assuming David had more than one wife here, and the other wives were also punished too. And they were given to thy neighbour, which we can assume is the people in the street, or, friends. That's what neighbour means, doesn't it? Neighbour, respect thy neighbour, friends, family, weird, but, or people in the streets, people around that live nearby. And he shall lay with thy wives in the sight of the sun. I wonder what that can mean. I'm not going to say it. But anyway, sorry. There's me ranting again. It's actually written by me anyway. Punishment for the wives, to be given to thy neighbour, and he shall lie with thy wives in sight of the sun. Sure, she did do wrong also, but David wasn't directly punished. And I emphasize this. The soul who sins shall die. The son shall not bear the guilt of the father, nor the father bear the guilt of the son, which is for the next part here, about the baby. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to thy enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. And Nathan departed unto his house, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's, I think that says, wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. And that was 2 Samuel 12, paragraph or line 14 to 15. But a few lines down it shows a bit more. And then it came to pass on the 7th day that the child died. And the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, Behold, while the child was yet still alive, we spake up to him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself, if we tell him that the child is dead? The baby suffered for 7 days, and then died. God made a baby suffer, and the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. For absolutely no reason. The baby could have become a criminal like you said, but what happened to your free will argument? David did evil, he caused the death of a good man, and God did nothing until after. But the baby had to die just in case? Your argument here is disgusting. Now, I don't know why he hasn't commented anymore. I'm guessing because he's a Bible literalist, he's rethinking what he actually believes in, and maybe he'll actually read the Bible to realise what he's saying that he believes in. While editing this video, I was wrong, by the way. He actually does reply once again. I just thought I'd check before I sort of, finish off the video, but he's continued it, and we've been talking for a bit once again, and at the end of this, I'm not going to talk to him anymore. I've literally been like, bye, by the end of this. But yeah, as you can see, he's decided to respond. I didn't think he would. I thought I had pretty much covered absolutely everything in that previous one, but no, apparently he's still going to try and defend, which I consider that doubling down. Let's see how he goes. So he responds by stating the quote from Ezekiel, just randomly. So a person is not... Oh wait, I've got to do the voice again. So a person is not punished by the sins of their parents. Are you, questioning me on that? I mean, I'm not the one saying that's not true. I'm saying that the Bible says that that is the case, and you're defending the Bible showing a story where it actually happens, like your God contradicting himself. That being said, just as someone from a rich family, let's say, inherits the richest status and so on, the effects of sins also take effect on the children. Are you actually going against your own Bible as a Bible literalist here? Are you telling me you think differently here, or are you trying to argue against me by stating that you agree with me? Because I'm saying the Bible is doing that, but quotes that it shouldn't, and you're saying that it does do that and that's how it is, despite the quote that says that it shouldn't happen. So then he just types point 1. To assume that there is a better way to do something, you should find it first. From someone who denies evolution is funny because he's trying to stop us from finding it. You cannot ask for a better version with no idea if is possible considering the laws of the material universe. Also as a note, what you said is like saying a personal car is not well built because it does not resist going into a concrete wall at 200 kmph. Using things in other ways than they are designed, or being their max capability is your fault, not the designer's. Okay, it's my fault that I stand upright. Am I meant to be walking on all fours because that's what our backs are kind of suitable for? I mean, all I'm trying to do is stand up and grow as a human being. When I was like 16-ish, that's when I started having effects on my bad back, and I think that's what he's going on about here. And it's my fault for trying to stand up and walk around, apparently, at 16 years old. I didn't even go out much, to be quite honest. I was pretty indoorsy. Seems a result of a genetic defect to me. Those appeared in a time after the fall, especially after the fall, as we lived in a world dominated by entropy. A world that your God is said to have created, and one that created a perfect world with perfect beings in it. I'm the one saying that there are mistakes made by your perfect God, and you're, again, arguing with me by agreeing with me. 2 and 3 in response to my statement from the Bible, the story. First, there is a difference between doing something evil and being evil. Regarding the punishment, as I said, no matter what mistake you make, God's desire is for you to regret it and return to the right path, not for you to die. The story was about a baby getting punished for someone else's sin, so how can the baby repent? How can the baby say sorry or feel bad or, regret the stuff he's meant to be doing there, so that he can return to the right path? He didn't have an option. Like, the baby was born to die as a punishment for David, and you're saying that he wants people to regret it. I know you're defending David there, but you can't defend David by saying that God wants you to return to the right path and not die by killing a baby. One of the exceptions is suicide for obvious reasons. You cannot repent anymore once you are dead. I know the context. Well, you don't seem to. You seem to be defending two different people in two different ways. Nathan said that for his sin, the payment should be that him with his family had to die. David repented, and God forgave him, but since the child was made while Uriah was still alive, the child had to die. In this way, God made a lot of things. The child gained heaven, also suffering for a week before dying, for no reason of his own. Although after Les's dead on the cross, I'm assuming it means Jesus died on the cross, David suffered for the child and received the punishment for his crime. Now don't get me wrong, if a child dies, the parent is definitely going to suffer. But you can make a parent have a punishment without incurring a death of the child. It is not fair to the child. I don't care what punishment God gives to David. He definitely did something wrong, but the child didn't. Punish David without punishing other people. A perfect God can find a way. And anyone who had a close relative in the situation like this, you suffer for it more than yourself. Exactly, and I'm sure that other people related to that baby, the grandparents maybe, let's say, or uncles and aunts, anyone else involved in that family would have received the exact same punishment as David. Therefore, David didn't receive a sufficient punishment, and the baby did. Much more significant of a punishment. And the wife was not left to fight for her livelihood alone, but got married to David. So David still got what he wanted. God often turns bad things made by human choices in good things. It reminds me of two stories about this. I will just mention the shortest. A hermit, I'm not even going to read the story. It's detracting and it's just long and it's completely irrelevant. Feel free to pause the video and read it if you like. It's there. We'll move on to his point A. According to the Judeo-Christian law, every man should have just one wife, but God, for the greater good, sometimes allowed certain derogations, so to speak, similar to how Moses' law on divorce. Those wives were merely political marriages and meant more than anything a loss of power rather than anything else. I don't care if multiple wives are allowed in a society or anything along those lines. That's perfectly fine to me, as long as it works both ways. Like, a wife can have multiple husbands. That's fine by me. Just because we support the idea generally in society that monogamy is the right way, a polyamorous relationship is also just as valid, as long as everyone in the relationship agrees to it and is completely understanding of what they're getting themselves into. then I don't see a problem with that either. It seems like you have a problem with it because you're the one that brought it up. I didn't bring it up as a problem. I brought it up as a question, as in God punishing the other wives. Because again, those wives would have been innocent. They were married to David. David did something wrong with someone else, and the wives are getting punished too. On his point B, God allows people to suffer. You seem to believe suffering is bad. Yeah, if I'm sick, it doesn't feel good. But suffering can be good. Yes, I can kind of understand that. Like, the no pain, no gain in the gym sort of scenario. I get it. But I don't think sickness is the same as no pain, no gain, especially when the end result is die. As I said, you do not see the greater picture. No, I just look at the death of the baby and think that's wrong. An innocent baby died, and there was no good that came from it. Suffering brings greater reward to the innocent. The innocent baby? Right? David wasn't innocent, and he got the greater reward. This is my point. And helps the guilty to return to God. You say David was not punished, but he suffered way worse. I very much doubt that. If you remember, he did not eat or drink anything and just prayed for those days. Yeah, and at the moment, the baby has passed away, and he is also not drinking or eating because of that. Since death is not the end, we should consider things in perspective. This life is made so that one can gain rewards in the next through pain and suffering. Okay, so the baby goes to heaven at the end, and David goes to heaven at the end. So these things are equal, and in this line of equation, like a moral equation, we can negate those two things because both parties will receive them in your story. My argument is that God made a baby suffer for no reason. Don't know how much more clearly I can say it to this person. So I continued. I tried to keep my answers shorter now because honestly I was tired of typing. So I'm trying to just make the point more clearer so that he kind of gets it from a different point. If I hadn't told you that the story was in the Bible, you wouldn't defend God for causing the suffering of a baby till death. If I had told you the story was in a pagan religion's book, you'd say that's why they're evil or wrong. But with the Bible, you have to double down, redirect into another story, and deflect the issues. I will not continue to read you justifying this evil act anymore. I was wrong. He keeps on grabbing me. I can't help myself, okay? You can see I've already commented down there. I did know it is in the Bible because I read it. If you did, you probably wouldn't believe it. From the beginning to end when I was 13. I said from beginning to end because there is a section where they just record lineages and I generally avoid that. I am not doubling down at all. I am explaining the situation. There are two things that seemingly atheists fail to understand. Well, it's definitely not morals. One, especially when it comes to the Old Testament. When it comes to something evil, being told does not mean something that is considered good. No, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that God was evil to kill that baby. The story is being evil, and sure, there are bad parts in it, and maybe there are good parts to it. But we're not going on about the story being evil. I'm going on about God in the story that you take literally, doing something evil and you're justifying it in ways that make no sense to me. 2. God has the right to life and death over everyone simply because he is the source of life, and he's acting like a child playing with an ant in a magnifying glass. Denying this is like saying the power plant cannot cut your power if they want to. In the case I mentioned, you can argue with them that you paid a subscription, but you did not pay anything to God. I couldn't if I wanted to. And why would I pay anything to God? You haven't even proven his existence. If he wanted payment, he could come and ask for it. Also, in his analogy of the power plant cannot cut your power if they want to, they can, sure they can, and I could legally get a refund for my subscription because they did not provide the service they offered. Not that I find it completely analogous, but I didn't want to just leave that out there. About those pagan books, you seem to think, at the same level, what is extremely prevalent in those is human sacrifice, especially of infants, especially if the killing is gruesome and painful for the victim. Most of it comes to adults required the person to be killed in multiple ways simultaneously. Although I do not agree with Carlin in some points, I agree that God does not need for humans to kill someone. But he does agree that he needs to kill a baby. You're completely avoiding the whole thing now. You've gone on to completely other different tangents. Talking about you read the Bible but generally avoid lineages is just filling in. That's just filler. Not doubling down. You're not explaining the situation. I'm just going through what he's saying now and trying to understand why he thinks killing a baby is okay in the book of the Bible. But I just don't get it. So I put the complete opposite. I put, oh, I see. You do understand it all. My bad. I see my mistake now. I failed to understand that literalists literally think it's okay to have the baby suffering because of God's will. It was wrong for God to do that. End of. There's no way, absolutely no chance I could ever, at all, even in the slightest, agree or understand that the character that did that was a good God? And his response was, "Is your choice. I will just ask one question. You've asked many questions, and I've answered them, and you've just gone on to different things, but okay. Is taking a bit of medicine good or bad? Is going on a diet due to health problems good or bad? Is pruning trees good or bad? How is this relevant? You think things like going on a diet are comparable to God making a baby suffer for a week, resulting in the death of that baby? And then he thinks I'm misrepresenting him. No, I've clearly asked the questions. Admittedly, kind of get the point, but I think he's just being pernickety. Not only you choose only one of these examples, you misrepresent it as well. I am not talking about going on a diet. Let's go back a bit. Is going on a diet due to health problems good or bad? I think he's talking about diet. A diabetic does not go on a diet. He has to stick to a diet. Is different. Also, it always amazes me how atheists always have problems with God, who created all life and is the source of all life. Taking a life from this world full of pain and misery and putting into a place full of happiness, but have no problem with mothers killing babies or even humans killing other humans. Right, there are many issues I have with that statement. No, I didn't, and it doesn't matter. Someone must go on the most extreme diet to save their life from major complications, versus God killed a baby and made it suffer for a week. Include the most bitter medicines for the same issues as well, and dealing with the most unpruned trees on earth. It doesn't compare. I didn't misrepresent. I'm just tired of saying the same thing over and over again. And you telling me it's okay. I have issues with all of those things, but none of them do I worship a God and claim to be all good. But one of them you do. So stop deflecting and misrepresenting me and the atheist view. The person goes on a diet to save his earthly short and painful life. Also, I'd like to point out he's going on about how bad the earth is and how painful and suffering it is, but isn't, the earth made to be perfect? Aren't humans meant to be perfect? Isn't everything meant to be perfect because perfect being made it? It is what he said earlier, isn't it? He did quickly change it to be errors and all that sort of stuff, so he's already contradicted himself quite a few times. The person goes on a diet to save his earthly short painful life. God, with a little bit of suffering, saves two souls. Which is greater, the earthly life or the eternal soul? Also, am I to understand you are against abortion? Most atheists are for this form of murder. He really doesn't understand me on this one, and I'm kind of glad he took it there, because I don't debate abortion. And you'll see with why, in my comments, I really don't want to debate abortion. It's obviously a touchy subject for some, and I actually have extreme views on it. More extreme than the extremists. But I don't voice my views because my answers are a bit too much. To achieve. So as you can see, his comments just at the top there. Deflection again, but... Oh no, it's my voice. Deflection again. But sure, I'll bite. But either way I answer, you won't like it. My answer to abortion isn't possible, so I stay out of the argument. I value potential life, which is the key term there, but also the right someone has to their own body. So my answer would be to extract the baby or fetus and grow in a lab. But that's not possible in reality, to replace abortion. And I understand that, so stay out of the argument. Otherwise, we could continue my own reasoning here, before you misrepresent it. A clump of cells is equal to a baby in my view, but there is still a difference on timing. A clump of cells has no conscious, which I spelt wrong, has no conscious awareness, but a fetus/baby kinda does, I put. But it depends on how you view it and, which I explain later. If we are to put the same rights to the clump of cells, then we need also to do the same for sperm. So, no masturbation for biological males. Sorry, dude. If we agree with that, then awesome. But for the same reasoning again, no sex. Millions die for one to survive, and that's only when pregnancy occurs, which is not allowed by this logic, and therefore would also require science and labs to resolve. I know, strange that I likely went more extreme than you were expecting, or even than yourself, but hey, you asked. See, I believe based on what he said, most atheists are for this form of murder. He was expecting me to just go, yeah, sure, abortions, and if you believe that, that's fine. I won't even argue you if you say that you're for it, because I understand that there's both two sides to the argument, and I understand it's complicated. But those are my views in my head that I would put to based on my own morals, but I don't voice them because that's my viewpoint, it doesn't mean I'm correct. It's just how I feel about the world around me, so I don't make other people believe the same way. And his reply, to me being as understanding, but as extreme as I need to be to get my point across, not really. As a note, over 90% of abortions happen after that clump of cells has functioning heart and brain. Thus, even if you consider consciousness to reside in brain or heart, I don't think anyone's arguing that the consciousness is in the heart. They do have conscious. The rest are generally using the pill. While onane is another thing rejected by Christianity, the idea was that life starts when the cell starts to divide. Now, I don't understand that logic. Just because the cell starts dividing doesn't mean it's alive. I mean, sure it does, but it doesn't mean that's when life started in that particular thing. I don't know when life specifically starts. I mean, even if you go back to my point where I think sperm would technically be considered alive in my own viewpoint, then at what point in the creation, in the testicles, do sperms suddenly become alive? Even in my viewpoint, I don't know. I'd have to regress to that and then research how sperm are made and the stages of sperm development and try and figure it out from there. Could things before sperm be alive that I don't know in the process of it? I'm not going to go into it too much. I'm overthinking this. But my logic is, if you think that cells are a living organism in this case, then sperm also is. Or so are ova. But yeah, I had to look up what onany means, and it's basically, masturbation, which is fair enough, but I said he had to be against sex if he's going to go for what I believe in, if he's going to be following the extremist view that I would have. Not that I follow my own views, just to be clear. I physically couldn't, because I would have to do other things like not eat. I genuinely couldn't find a way where I could actually have a diet based on my views, but I won't go into that today. Anyway, my response to that was, I understand both sides of abortion, but I can't align with one side because my answer, as stated before, provides help to both, but isn't possible realistically. And I would also disagree that life starts at cell division. Surely life starts before. Both the sperm and the egg are alive before they join. If they weren't, it'd be hard for fertilization to happen. So, no, cell division doesn't really have anything to do with it becoming alive. As for consciousness, assuming that consciousness is mainly localized in the cortex, consciousness cannot emerge before 24 gestational weeks. It's not just about having a brain, but there are many other ideas of what is considered consciousness, like being able to make decisions. More of a life thing in general than humans. But there are also other things like being self-aware, which is again different, but there are also the ideas of level of consciousness in animals and creatures. As brains get more complex, maybe so does consciousness. It's really hard to try and measure and define, as it's really hard to understand someone or something else's consciousness. And how did he respond to that? Well, 1. If life exists before, we do not know. Actually, most scientists consider sperm not to be alive, but it's kind of depending on what you consider life to be. Now, it depends on how you understand life. Yeah, okay, fair enough. He does say it as I do. I understand life in this case as having a soul, a conscience, not just being not dead. So, if it's not dead, it's alive, but you don't consider it alive unless it's conscious. Wait, does that mean someone asleep is not alive to you? I know I'm being pedantic there, but, I don't know, maybe maggots, they don't have consciousness, I don't believe. I'd probably have to look that up before claiming it. So, just an idea, maybe they're not alive. I think flies are. They've got a bit of a brain. Probably not completely conscious, but they have some form of neuromatter. So I'd love to know what non-human life is in your eyes. Just extremely complex creatures, which I'm sure you eat many of them. And we do not know at what point the soul is added, but is extremely unlikely to be before the zygote egg appears. Okay, well that still is fine by me. Let's have the egg as the soul carrier. I don't know. The egg, I still said, could be alive. In my viewpoint, I think the egg is alive. But being alive doesn't mean being aware or conscious or anything along those lines. Single-celled bacteria are alive. An ovum can be alive. Regarding the second part, so you would be okay with killing people with severe... I'm not saying that. And old people that are merely impaired. Also, children under 7 cannot actually make decisions. You would be okay with killing those too. I have tried my absolute best to be completely understanding of this guy, but at this point, I've told him that my views are more extreme than his are. We pretty much have agreed on that, at this point, that I'm more extreme than he is. And we're just generally debating that. What it makes to be considered alive and consciousness and all that sort of stuff. And then he goes on, as if I'm okay with killing disabled people and old people that have mental issues and children under the age of 7. Apparently that means that. Even though, I have more extreme views on life than he does. You can't win with these people. You haven't understood what I said my stance is. Considering what you stated, my views are more extreme against abortion than yours. And yet, You're still arguing that I want to kill disabled people, old people, or kids. I stated a sperm is alive in my view, and you stated they aren't. I'll flip this to you. Unless you've never had sex in your life, whether man or woman, causing yourself or someone else to ejaculate releasing sperm to die in the millions, even if pregnancy is achieved, is technically wrong in my view. I understand my point here is extreme, and that's why I stated I don't usually debate abortion, because my answers aren't really possible. So instead, I try to understand other people's viewpoints and accept that it's complicated. That's why I presented different viewpoints on consciousness as well. So hopefully you can learn from it and realize that just because you have a stance on something doesn't mean that you're correct. Your inability to even try to understand other people's views leaves me with one thing left to say. Bye. And I think my last comment there accurately sums up how I felt about him. So, yeah, goodbye. If you figure out who this person is, don't be mean to them. If they're just sharing their views, that's also perfectly fine. On to a point where he was expressing his views, so I was free to express mine too. He had issues with evolution, and I had issues with the Bible, so we expressed those, and it did go a bit far, I suppose. But quite frankly, it definitely shocked me, some of his answers to these questions. So yeah, we're gonna keep it tame from now on, and if that doesn't happen, people will be blocked. So my main issue with his way of arguing was literally me saying the complete opposite, and then him going on a rant of, so you'd be okay with killing people with severe disabilities and old people that are mentally impaired. Like, no, I said that sperm are alive, you said they're not. I have more extreme views on life than you do, and yet you're still trying to come at me with these attacks, verbal attacks, you know? It's just strange to me that you were doing that. You were expecting my views to be like the average atheist, and I respect their views, they're fine. I do not want to force my views on anyone at all, not these abortion views anyway. Not teaching religion in school as science, I'd like to definitely push those views. But yeah, and I think this last little statement based on this clip here will just play. Not sure exactly why he had to quote a timestamp to comment this one, but I think this encapsulates the end of this video pretty well. A fact is like stating the climate is changing, generally increasing in global temperature. Interpretations would be like stating it's because of humans, or it's natural and would have happened with or without us here. These are not changing the fact. These are hypotheses which are perfectly fine. These two ideas are not facts until they independently become facts. There is evidence for humans being the cause, so that became the fact. Denying that became misinformation rather than interpretation. That is a lie, not a fact. I cannot hear you anymore. You are allowed to refuse to listen, but this is part of the problem. They won't read their own book, they won't listen to reason, but yet they'll still spout from it for some unknown reason. I don't even know why anymore. Feel free to let me know if you want me to cover any specific YouTuber that does this sort of thing, and I'll see what I can do. And if you have any comments about my line of reasoning here, feel free to just let me know. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe I shouldn't point out where they're wrong. It's just the part where it gets taught in schools is like being tried to be forced upon. In Florida, it is actually allowed now to be taught in schools as science instead of religious studies, which just shocks the hell out of me. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Feel free to comment and let me know what your discrepancies are with the Bible. But there are two videos on screen right now. Feel free to click on one and I will see you there.